7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, and welcome to the Marketing Essentials podcast. Our unique team helps small businesses grow by providing essential marketing expertise.
Hello and welcome to the Marketing Essentials podcast. My name is Bill from W. Parmentier Photography.
I'm Justin with Justin Kerr Design.
And I'm Alicia with the Spark Social.
And together we make up
The Marketing Essentials team.
And I almost said we are W. Parmentier Photography.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. We've only done this, 50 times? Something like that?
Yeah.
60 times? So
Maybe like 52.
Yeah, something
as
like
in, we're 1 year old.
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
Yeah. On this date,
Well, let's be clear, because just so that we make sure this gets out.
okay.
But March 21st.
we're recording this episode on March 19th.
Sorry, March 19th, excuse me.
And we began the podcast
March 21st. I'm sorry, I was off.
March 21st of last year. So today is our 1 year anniversary. Happy birthday to the podcast.
Yes, happy birthday. Who's going to sing
Happy
it?
birth? No.
I don't think, no, we're
singing.
not going to sing.
Uh-oh, we got Froyo getting
All
ready
right,
to jump
Froyo's
in.
going to sing.
Ready, Froyo?
Happy birthday to us, except for me. Happy birthday to us, except for me. Happy birthday to podcast. Happy birthday to us, except for me.
Okay, all right.
So our podcast is
1 year old. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
So
that's
we,
great.
we were discussing a little bit before we got on the microphone about the fact that 1 year we've been at this, and
Right.
we didn't. A lot of things we didn't expect a year out to have happened, and
I could not have predicted that we would end up
where we are now.
where we have, yeah.
And we thought, hey, it'd be a great idea to go through like a podcast and talk about the highlights of what's gone on over the last year.
Right, so each of us decided that we would select our memorable moment from the last year, a memorable guest from the podcast, and something that we learned over the last year. So who wants to go first?
Okay, well let's start. We'll go around the table and do our memorable moment.
All
and
right.
then we'll come back around and do the next one.
Why don't you start with your memorable moment?
Oh man, this was probably one of the toughest ones for me because there were a lot of really memorable moments. I think for me, it's kind of a group of moments,
Okay.
which was early on in the podcast when we decided a cool part of the podcast would be to introduce Alicia to some of the local stuff that we do.
Yeah.
Some of the local Rhode Island stuff. So
Yeah.
we did Dell's Lemonade, I think, one day. We did Coffee Milk. We did
Yacht Club Soda.
Yacht Club Soda. So
we did Gaggers.
Awful Waffles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
that
right.
to me that was fun. The early days when we were doing video and we were doing these little video clips of. I mean, I think we even went to Union Station at one point and tried some of the craft brews.
We
they
had a
there.
flight of, their beer, yeah.
Yeah, so to me that's probably one of the memorable that section of moments. I'd love to get back to that at some point, but that was a lot of fun. How about you, Justin?
For me, it was where it all started. So we had actually gotten together to do a webinar prior to doing the podcast. And this goes back to the end of 2017.
Yes,
Whoa, that's so long ago.
You know, it's like,
it does seem like so long ago because that all started with a conversation at a expo.
Yes.
Yeah.
In like October of 2017.
a friend that we all have in common said, "Oh, you guys, you know each other. You have these unique abilities. You should really do a webinar to educate people on marketing. You know, because Bill, you can cover photography, and Justin, you can cover branding and design, and Alicia, you're social media." And we yeah,
let's go with it.
that sounds like fun. So we'll do a webinar. And boy, did we find out how much work that was.
A lot.
Well, yeah, because what did we spend? Almost a month and a half just putting together our talking notes and doing
Right.
rehearsal. After
Strategy
rehearsal.
meetings.
We are far less prepared these days.
And then, yeah, but I think we're far more interesting too.
we just wing it every podcast. We just show up with a microphone.
Not quite that far.
What are we talking about today? So, and then the promo video. Oh my gosh, for the webinar, you remember that? That
Yeah, that was a nightmare.
two full days for what? 6 minutes of video? Not even.
Not
Yeah,
even.
I had
I
to
think
go
we had to
through-
shorten it down to 60 seconds for Facebook.
Yeah, and I think I had to go through almost 4 hours worth of video.
Yeah, which is
to edit it.
ridiculous. Just ridiculous. So anyway, my favorite moment
was fun.
was after we had finished the second webinar, and we're like, okay, that was fun, but we can't just keep doing the same webinar. So
What now?
Yeah, what do we do now? And I think it was Bill that said, well, we could do a podcast. And before I could start to talk about all the reasons why that would be difficult, Alicia said, yeah, let's do it. And we had scheduled a meeting, and I was like, oh, geez. So,
How did I get myself into this one?
yeah,
And I think at the time we talked about just doing once every 2 weeks, doing a podcast.
right.
And then as time moved on, we were like, well, we need to do this a little bit more often. And I think it was like April or May of last year, we went full on once a week with the podcast.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we learned a lot. We learned that, 45 minutes was too long for the podcast, and, that every other week was not frequent enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, a whole bunch of tech stuff too.
Oh my gosh, if I
But
think
you know
about
what?
this stuff early on.
Before we get into what we learned, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes,
so
yes.
that was my most memorable moment, was just the origin point of the podcast and Alicia just basically taking off and saying, okay, keep up.
If anybody that's known Alicia more than, 2 minutes, knows that if you bring something up to her and she thinks this is a good idea, it's like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
But
But
never
Wow,
even,
is
don't
that
even
my
think about
reputation around here?
I'll tell you what.
We love you, Alicia, but
Listen, looking at
We
you,
appreciate
we've known each other for 16 years.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, if Alicia hadn't taken off, and
No, I would've-
we would have never done this.
no. I mean, I brought it up kind of half-heartedly saying, oh, let's do a podcast, not having any clue what I was getting myself into or getting us into.
Right. All right.
And
So
Alicia's like, oh, let's go with it.
My most memorable
Sorry,
moment
Alicia, we're not picking on you. I promise.
is right now. No, I'm just kidding. My most memorable
cue the
moment.
sappy music. You had me at podcast.
I'm ready for my Emmy speech.
You like me. You
You're
really
my
like me.
inspiration. No. So I think the most memorable moment was, again, those field trips that we used to do. So I think Onlyville hot dogs was
Yeah,
the wieners. They're wieners.
Unfortunately, I was back here at at the time we were at Sprout, but I was in the conference room while you guys went and got it. So
Right.
I missed, other than seeing the video, I missed the initial reaction when they were putting the hot dogs on the arm.
Let me tell you the story
yeah.
about that. So we go in, and Alicia had never been into New York system before, and this is down in Onlyville.
Yeah.
And so we walk in, and the guy behind the counter is like, so you've been here before? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he looks at Alicia, and Alicia's like, no. And he goes, oh, we got a weenie virgin. And I'm like,
Oh no!
okay.
And Alicia's probably like, "What have I gotten myself?"
And she's
into?
looking at the guy like, whatever.
I'll
and
have
then,
a hot dog, please.
Yes.
I didn't even know how to order.
So after we placed our order, Alicia's watching the guy prep
when
the
he puts it up the
wieners,
arm?
right? And he puts the buns on his arm.
How did we order them, Justin?
all the way, right?
all the way.
All the way, right.
Yeah.
Right. And so she's watching the guy put the buns on his forearm and putting the weenies in, and she's like, should I be concerned about,
Health,
What was it?
health?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
sanitary.
trust me, you should be more worried about what's in it than
Yeah, exactly.
anything that might be.
I think that's the reason why the health department never comes into those places. It's like,
No,
yeah,
but it was-
what's in the wiener is probably worse than what's on his arm.
It's one of my favorite places, and
Yeah.
I believe your take on it was that you enjoyed them. It was actually pretty
Yeah.
good.
They were awesome. They
Yeah.
were so good. So we have some video footage. So we'll put together
Yeah,
a
I'll
little.
see if I can find that. It's
Yeah. Oh, we had videoed ourselves like driving in the car to Olneyville system. and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
inside, and it was a whole thing.
yeah. I still have some of that early video. I think I also have some from when you tasted your first awful too.
That
Yep.
was my second favorite, and then Yacht Club was
Yeah,
my
Club
third.
Soda. We did a video of that. That was part of the actual podcast. We did that
Right.
one.
Did
but-
we do? Oh, and then we went to Union Station.
We never made
yeah.
it to the Clam Shack.
No.
No.
Well, we had originally talked about going to the Rocky Point Chowder House.
Yeah, we just never made it.
Well, from what I've heard, it's kind of changed quite a bit. It's in the middle of a parking lot now. It's not even
Oh,
the building that
right.
it used
There's
to
always Iggy's.
But there's Iggy's is great.
be. I wouldn't mind going to Blount too, right down
Yeah.
in
Well,
Bristol.
Actually, that you know
really
what that's a really good place too.
good. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we're getting way off track here, but
So now
that
we're
was
all
your
about
favorite
the
experience.
podcast, and we just do the podcast, and we don't go on any fun field trips
Yeah, well,
anymore.
I think. Sorry, I think when we decided to go to audio only format, it kind of put a kibosh on a lot
Yeah.
of. What
Well,
we
I
were
tell
doing.
you what,
Yeah.
if one of our beloved food places out there, whether it's Blount or Iggy's, wants to sponsor a podcast episode,
do a
we would
video.
be happy to come and do a podcast episode on location.
That's awesome. You
And
know what I haven't had?
I'll even set it up as a video podcast. We'll do
Okay.
it as a full video.
This is on my list. I have not had. I've been living here in Rhode Island for 6 years. Also went to college here for 4 years or however long I was in college for.
4 or
Don't
5.
really
something
recall.
like that.
College is the best 6 years of my life.
Way too long, no matter what. And then I've never had the pizza on Federal Hill, the Caserta. It's
Caserta's
Caserta's
Pizza?
the
Oh,
thick
Caserta's
one.
Pizza.
Well, my favorite used to be the, it's not even Bob and Timmy's anymore. What is it now?
It's
just
Timmy's.
Timmy's now.
Yeah.
I like that place too, but that's a totally different style of pizza.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
So
Caserta's is very unique.
Yes.
It's the thick crust, correct?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
thick. It's very simple.
See what
you know.
happens? We talk about food and we just get way...
I know, we go way off
All right,
track.
so I'm going to try to
You know
pull...
what should we do an on-location episode from is Haven Brothers.
Yeah, the problem we'd have is
Haven't
we'd
had
be
that
sitting there
either. I
going... We'd be
haven't
sitting
had
there
that
going...
Right, right.
All right, so
Anyway,
we'll
sorry.
put a call out to some of these restaurants.
Yeah,
and-
no, I would definitely be interested in, I can definitely, if they can get us a wireless connection somehow, I will get us a video set up for it.
Okay.
I
We'll
love
do a
it.
live feed, that'd be fun.
All right, so
Anyway.
we've gone through memorable moments. Now, back to you, Bill. Memorable guest.
Oh, this is so tough because we've had so many really cool guests over the
absolutely.
last year, and I mean I could pick the easy ones because we've had some photographers and people that are along my line.
Right.
But I'm going to pick one of our more recent ones. I would say John McNiff. He was a blast to have him in the conference room with us doing the podcast, and I learned so much about what he does.
Yeah.
And
well,
I've always,
now for somebody who maybe this is their first episode they've ever listened to, you got to explain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
John McNiff is, I should say, a historical reenactor. He does reenacting from the golden age of piracy, but he also does Roger Williams
And William Blackstone.
And William Blackstone.
Right.
And he told us, he came and talked with us on one of our podcasts about the power of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that's known John for more than a few minutes knows that he's such a great storyteller to begin with. And it was
And
just
such a big personality.
yeah,
too.
he's got such a great personality, and for somebody like me who's constantly having to watch the tech end of things, I'm watching the audio, I'm watching everything. I found myself a lot of times during that podcast going, "Oh, I got to get back on and watch the mic." I mean, we've got no offense to William because William does a great job as far as
Our
an
intern here, yes.
He does a great job, but sometimes, I still like to keep my hand in things, So, but I found myself during the John McNiff interview really forgetting about the fact that we were doing a podcast. I got lost in what was going on.
Because
Right.
he's very good at storytelling.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And
Yeah.
he had some great stories
does.
about how he got into
Yeah.
reenacting way back in the 70s.
Oh, I have no doubt we could have spent days with him talking.
Yes, we could have.
We could have done like 8 podcasts.
As a matter of fact, he just got back from his second tour in England, taking a group
saw
of
that on
students
Facebook. I saw that on
from
Facebook.
Roger Williams
Yeah.
University over there and giving them a whole tour
Yeah.
of Roger Williams and where he lived and worked. So I saw the stuff on Facebook, and
Yeah, I saw some of it too. It's
photos were
incredible
really-
stuff that he was
yeah.
doing. So what was yours, Justin?
For me, it wasn't a single guest, but it was the panel that we did.
Oh, the one at Christmas time.
Yes, that episode came out, I think it was just after Christmas. And we did an episode on cause marketing, and we had a panel of 3 really neat individuals. We had Steve Hippolito from Silver City Limousine.
Limousine. And we had Cara Daniello from Four Echoes.
Four Echoes out in, they're in Seekonk.
Seekonk, yes.
And then Adam Rizzo.
From 1-800 Water Damage.
Right, down in Cranston. And brought each one of them on to talk about how they were doing cause marketing through their individual organization or business. So Steve, of course, had that wonderful story about how he had been helping the young girl, with her treatments at Children's Hospital.
Up in Boston, right?
Yeah, giving her free limo rides back and forth, she and her mother, and how that story just went completely viral
Yeah, one of the
Oh,
local
yeah.
on
TV
Facebook.
stations.
So we also had Cara Daniello
Yeah, Cara.
from Four Echoes out in Seekonk on 114 there next to the grist mill.
Yeah, next to the old grist mill. It used to be Vinny's Antiques.
That's right. And the story of how the church that she's part of, that she works for, actually took over Vinny's Antiques and turned it into Four Echoes. And it still functions the same way as this antique and secondhand place, but how they turned that into sort of an arm of their outreach into the community. And so a great story about that. They went into it thinking they would do one thing, and then it became another
So it's totally
thing.
different. And they're still doing really well to today. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my wife was just out there the other day. She went in looking for like an antique suitcase.
Yeah, I think I saw a post on Facebook about that. That was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
There.
And what she found was really cool. She found an old display case from like a traveling salesman.
Really?
So
Interesting.
it's this deep suitcase that opens up and has these little arms that come out, and you can hang things inside. So she got it for her when she does the knitting and shows and the craft shows. So she can pack everything in the case and then open it up and display everything. It's really cool.
I actually scored a cool an antique Sekonic light meter. there.
Oh, yeah?
Unfortunately, it doesn't work, but it was still kind of, it was just a cool piece. They get some really cool stuff there.
Oh, yeah, no, they
Anyway.
do.
Anyway,
Totally.
sorry, so.
All right,
and
so we
then
had Cara
third-
Danielle, and the third one was Adam Rizzo
From
from
1-800
1-800 Water Damage, and he had several stories actually about cause marketing and helping out some people with environmental cleanup, especially the female veteran who'd come back from Afghanistan with PTSD and had some issues with her children. And Adam was able to go in and clean up because she had developed
a hoarding disorder.
a hoarding disorder, right? And cleaned up the place, and she was able to get her kids back, and that was just a tremendous story.
I'm always a big fan of people that work with the military because there's a lot of military in my family. So anytime
Yeah.
I hear
Yeah.
somebody helping out with the military, I'm
Well,
like, yes.
there's
go.
a lot of military in my family now. It wasn't that case a few years ago, but you know, I have daughter in the Navy,
Yeah,
son-in-law in the Army, and so all of a sudden I'm like all military now. So
all military
just-
all the time.
It's so important. The cause marketing, I don't think you got a chance to really explain it. It's so important to give back as a business.
Absolutely.
And we often don't think about those things as like part of our marketing or branding. But, and I'm trying to find an article. I'll plug the link in the show notes, but it's about how the new way of marketing is being related to your community, giving back, and having a cause.
And of course, we'll also post all the podcasts that we're referencing
Yes.
in the show notes.
oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So
people
This is
can go
going to be
back
a
and see.
long show
notes.
notes.
Yeah,
okay,
but
but
go
we're
back
we're
and listen to
celebrating
these
a year.
podcasts. You know, like take some time to go back and
Yeah.
listen to the podcast because you
Yeah.
will gain something out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean-
that was, I think, my most memorable guests would be that panel.
How about you, Alicia? What was your most
So,
memorable guest?
My most memorable is going to be John LaPointe
Oh, John. Yeah, he's a great guy.
from LaPointe Insurance, and they're located in nearby, I think, Attleboro and Mass, and obviously he's in Rhode Island too. But
Yeah. He just moved into my neck of the woods not too long ago.
yeah,
What,
so
in Cumberland?
Yeah, he lives in Cumberland now.
Oh yeah, that's right. So he recently got named, I think, 40 under 40,
40,
or
40,
something.
which is a big thing. That's nothing to sneeze at.
And,
Yeah, now that you're going to have to explain. Anybody doesn't know what 40 under 40 is.
yeah, so for like the local magazines, I believe it was through the Fall River. I think it was through Fall River.
I forget who it was through, but I remember seeing it. He's one of the
top
top 40
40
in his in business under
Okay.
the age of 40.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
and so congrats to John if he's listening. But also, you know, so he's younger, he's coming into his family's insurance business, and there's a lot of industries out there that are kind of on the traditional side of marketing, and insurance companies are definitely one of them. So John comes into his family's business, right? And I urge you to listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
And he really switched things up for them.
He did.
He helped them with really simple things like claiming their Google business page, for instance, and then to more complex things like building their video presence online and getting more reviews and reputation, their SEO, making sure that they were being found. And I can't remember the exact stats, but within the year of him implementing these digital marketing trends or digital marketing techniques rather for his company, he, I think he saw like, I wanna say
It was a 30% growth.
Was it
Well,
there? Okay,
his
yes.
was, his
it
was a fascinating story because up until then they had done primarily print marketing.
Yeah, it's
And
very
TV ads.
traditional.
TV ads, yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very traditional. And maybe you were afraid or didn't know where to get started. And so bringing John on, I think that it really was like a testament to what our whole podcast aims to do. And
Sure.
it's to show people how they can bring digital marketing elements into their business and grow their business. And you don't need to be a marketing rocket scientist to get it done. So John
Yeah.
kind of learned along the way. Obviously, you know, he's younger and he maybe had like a social media upper hand on that.
And I
but
think it'd be a good thing if we put the link for his videos that he's doing for his business in the show notes also. I know it's like Justin said, it's going to be a long show notes, but
Yeah, it's all right.
it's really cool for people that want to learn what a business can do with video and with a small budget.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a huge budget he's using.
Well,
Right.
I think they took their
Most of his iPhone
their
stuff.
budget, which was in TV and in what was the other
Probably
arm that they were-
newspaper.
Newspaper
I
prints.
don't
They were,
know
do,
for
they were doing
sure.
direct mail too, I think, for a while.
translated it into digital and achieved
Exploded.
30% growth within a year. I mean,
That's
ask
huge.
any business if they'd like to grow 30% in a year,
Yeah.
and no one's going to say no.
And it also demonstrates a great use of video marketing because insurance is, let's face it, like one of those industries that is less visual and
Sure.
maybe even a little boring at times.
Yeah, I mean, because quite frankly, if he had come to me and said, "Hey, how do I make that?" That would have been a struggle. You know,
Like
I mean,
he found his
he
brand
found a way,
voice.
yeah.
Yeah, he
Right.
found a way. So we'll give you that showcase of videos or link to his Facebook page. And he keeps his brand voice really strong throughout. Like, they're very consistent, well-branded.
Definitely. And I think they've become known as, one of the sort of leading experts in what they do.
Sure.
Because you can tell somebody, hey, I sell insurance. Well, so what? But I think what John does is really good is sort of keying off on these different life events that everybody has.
Yeah.
And getting them to think about insurance when they normally wouldn't have it top of mind. So he's been he's pretty savvy. He's been really good with the social media for LaPointe.
Yeah, so it was a great podcast. He gives a lot of tips and stuff that you can learn.
And the nice thing, I've gotten to know John a little bit more since he was on our podcast, and I've gone to he's started doing some networking events now geared towards real estate agents. And given the fact that I do some photography in real estate, I got a chance to meet some people, and he's hitting it out of the park on a lot of different avenues. So definitely one of the more memorable guests we've had. Okay, so now we get to the next part.
Something that we
have
learned over the last year. So you're up.
Where do I start is the better question. This
Basically, when I was like, let's do a podcast, Bill had to learn how to do a podcast.
Yeah, basically, I had to learn everything tech related that
Yeah.
existed.
Well, you
as
already
far-
knew it. You just had to apply.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
You have no idea how many times I was winging it. But anyway, that's another story. Yeah, I think reality is that's the truth. Is the biggest learning thing for me out of this whole podcast thing is learning how to actually put on a podcast.
Properly.
The tech
because
stuff
there's
behind
ways
it.
to do it that are really easy, but it's not necessarily properly and professional.
Well, I mean, yeah, even stuff as simple as the purchasing the right microphone. We got some crappy microphones up front, and they were horrible.
Yep.
So we had to go back and rebuy them,
Yep.
and there were just certain things about it. And I think still to this day, a year later, there is still something at every podcast session we do. Now, for those of you who don't know, we typically will do 4 to 5, sometimes 6 podcasts in one day, and then I'll go back and edit them after the fact. And to this day, there's still points where we'll come across some sort of issue, and I've got to learn how to get around that because it's something that we haven't come up with yet or come across yet. So for me, the big learning thing now, maybe that's kind of a side thing, but to me, that's probably been the biggest learning curve for me is just how to put one on. But that's not to say that I haven't learned something from every one of our guests.
Yeah. Well, I think, Bill, that you've done a great job, and our podcasts always sound. I love them. The quality of the sound and the audio files always comes out great. I mean, there's things that you can control, like background noise will happen, and
Yeah, I mean, 'cause
people
we're not-
drop pens, like I just did. But
I mean, the reality is we're doing this on still a relatively low budget. We don't have a studio. We are using a conference room. Plug for Rooms and Works. They're a great place. They they offer us the use of their conference room every time we do a podcast session. But it's not the ideal place, given that it's not set up for recording. It doesn't have soundproof walls, and the big joke with us is when we do a podcast day, usually around lunchtime, a little bit after that, the mailman comes through, and outside of the conference room that we're in, you can hear the banging of the
Because we share a wall with the mailboxes.
and then metal mailboxes. So when
Right.
they close
So it's
them,
like bang, bang,
so
bang,
that's-
bang.
So we have to know that we have to stop and go
Right,
back and look at
right.
it afterwards. I didn't want to get too far on that, but anyway, that's and I've learned a lot of stuff about things that I knew nothing about, marketing related, different pieces of software. One of the big game changers for me was figuring out just the Facebook ad manager. I'd never even seen that before, and when Alicia started talking to us about it, I'm like, oh, I guess I got to learn that at some point.
Right.
So anyway, Justin, how about you? What was the biggest learning thing for you?
I always, one of the reasons I like doing the podcast is I always learn something new when we have guests on, because they talk to us about their expertise, they talk to us about their journey into what they do, and I always find that fascinating. I always feel like I've gotten an education,
Sure.
When we've had somebody on. But I think for me personally, the thing that I learned is that, one, this is a ton of fun. I really enjoy doing the podcast. And as you guys know, but maybe not everybody knows, 3 years ago, I decided to start my own business, right? And having worked for other people for 24 some odd years, and I was a little bit concerned about launching out on my own.
Sure.
And I think the podcast has helped provide confidence in the business end of things, because as we network and as we're out there, people have started to realize that we do this podcast and they start to recognize, I can't wait for the next episode to come out.
Which is kind of weird sometimes. It's like,
Right.
not in a bad way. It's just when I started my business, I never thought to myself, podcast, I'm going to get known because I'm recognized for talking on a weekly podcast.
Right. But it has been a real boon
Yeah.
to me, marketing wise. And, it's kind of shown me that, an old dog can learn new tricks.
Now, if somebody told you a year ago that you would be here right now doing this, what would you have told them?
I wouldn't have believed it. I mean, this was not something that I could have imagined. We finished the webinars and I thought, oh, well, that was fun. But
Yeah, now what?
yeah, now I got to go back to focusing on, my business. But I mean, this has become part of my business.
I mean,
part
I
of who I am.
genuinely look forward to podcast day every month, or just about every month.
Right.
It's fun.
Right. So that's what I've learned.
How about you, Alicia?
Yeah, so I've learned a lot. I've learned from every single one of you guys because I don't know anything about photography and videography and branding and graphic design and the things that go into all these different trades and services from behind the scenes. And on that note, it truly, you've heard the phrase, it takes a village, right, to raise a kid or something, I think
Yeah,
that's the phrase.
yeah.
Well, it takes like a team to produce a podcast.
That's for sure.
I've learned. And
Yeah.
so we chose the name. It's kind of funny if you think about it. We chose the team Marketing Essential. We chose the name, Marketing Essentials team before we went into the podcast stage of things.
Yes.
So we chose the Marketing Essentials team, being that we came from 3 different areas, 3 different backgrounds. And now that we're doing the podcast, it really takes a team to produce and carry out the podcast. And so, Bill has our tech stuff going strong. Justin works on the website, the branding side of things. Then, it gets tossed over to me to do the email and the social media. And obviously without the podcast tech part, we'd be really at a loss. But really
We
without
could just be in a room sitting to our talking to ourselves.
so it kind of starts on Bill's end there. But, if you're looking to do a podcast and you're solo, that's fine. And just, be prepared to maybe look for some assistance.
It's a lot of work. It
Yeah,
really
or just,
is.
Yeah.
put in all the extras and, you produce the file, but then you got to have a visual if you're going to be posting on social
And you
media.
still have to edit it. These podcasts that we do don't come out completely perfect right when we're done. We have
What?
to go back.
Are you kidding me? I thought we were perfect.
I'm peeling the
One
curtain.
take.
I'm peeling the curtain back slowly here.
Have we gotten better, Bill?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
I think we have.
We really have. I mean,
I think I've reduced my ums to at least 50% of what I used to.
Yeah, I would give you that. And I'm not gonna get into who has the most ums, but that's.
Oh,
that's-
no,
It-
now I'm
it's not
self-conscious.
it's not any of the 3 of us. I'll tell you that much. But,
Oh,
It's
really?
probably-
It's a guest we've had on a few times. So just leave
Oh,
it at that.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Who shall remain nameless? But anyway, but yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think when it comes to podcasting, especially in the way we're doing it, it's a little unusual because you don't see too many podcasts that have 2-3 people on a regular basis, 4 if you have a guest. And there's a lot of work that goes in behind it, and people don't realize it. It's like,
Right.
oh, you just sit down and talk for half an hour. Yeah.
And
No.
we honestly, we kind of fell into a lot of
But
this.
you gotta love it. If you don't love it, you're not gonna last.
No,
Ooh,
you
that's
have
a
to.
that's a good point.
I,
You
I-
really
I think
have to
we were
love it.
fortunate is that all of us really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
We've got a good chemistry
Exactly.
together. And one of the things that I've heard people tell me about the podcast is, yes, it's educational. Yes, it's informational. It's really helped them, get a leg up on some of this stuff. But they just enjoy the conversational and the informal tone that we have when we do this. It's not boring.
Well, hopefully.
I
I mean, I'm sure it's like anything else. I'm sure we've had a few podcasts that people didn't strike as well with people, but that's okay.
We cover a broad
Yeah.
range of topics, so I'm thinking that different podcasts resonate rather
Sure,
with
with different people.
different
Yeah.
audiences. So
Yeah.
So I'm going
Yeah.
to throw a curveball at you guys here because we
Oh,
didn't
boy.
talk about this one.
good thing we're not live on air.
Oh no, we can cut this part out if you guys don't like the question. But I'm going to ask one more question. I'm going to start with you, Justin.
If I was going to be a tree,
What
what
would you
kind
be?
of tree would I be?
What kind of animal would you be? Now,
Poetry.
what is your hope for the next year of the podcast?
Oh, wow, that is a bit of a curveball. I hadn't.
We didn't talk about this ahead of time, so
Oh,
I
man, Bill.
kind of saved this one. Sorry, I apologize. can kill me later.
You want me to start, Justin? Buy you some time?
Yeah, God,
Yeah,
if you get
please.
something, go for it.
Save me, Alicia.
All right. So my first wish is that we get a sponsor, and I'm gonna go after some of these food
think it's a
people
good
that
idea.
we mentioned. I mean, you guys are getting a ton of free press because
know,
we're always
huh?
talking about all your food, and we're eating it and buying it. So we would love to have a sponsor. You don't have to be a food company. We will take sponsors from any Rhode Island business or nearby Mass. And then the second thing that I hope we see is now I lost so a sponsor. And then also we launched, so talking about having a team behind you to produce a podcast, we launched
Ooh,
a
good plug.
podcast. Yeah. mhm.
I like that.
I'm really going strong on this one. So
Alicia, go.
yeah, we have our podcast production package recently launched, and it's really from a basic level to get you on the ground, hit the ground running, to a full on hiring us as your we're external, but essentially you're getting an internal podcast marketing team. So
Yep,
I hope we can really help some businesses with that.
And that's not to say, and we still offer also the possibility of doing webinars too, if somebody just wants to do a one and done kind of thing. But yeah, I like that. How about you, Justin? You ready to go back to you, or you want me to come up with mine?
No, I'm ready.
Okay.
So something that I'm hoping for over the next year would be great. As much as I love our venue here, Rooms and Works, obviously I'm a big fan because I have a co-working space here, but they've been very generous to us with the space and everything. But it would be really great, and maybe I'm stealing your thunder because this is a tech thing. It would be so.
I know where you're going with
it
this
would
one.
be so great to have a studio where we could
Oh,
just
dedicated studio.
a
Yeah.
dedicated studio where we could just walk in, sit down, turn on the equipment, and go.
Hey, well, for free use of a small area, we can have a permanent sponsor. What do you think?
That'd be nice. But it would, I think it would take some of the stress off you because it
Yeah.
is every month it's set up, breakdown.
Yeah.
There's a
And-
lot of things to remember. Like sometimes I can't even remember to bring my laptop charger. Bill brings about, I don't know, 20 different things of
I'll-
cords
I'll-
and tech and
Bill's Radio Shack on wheels.
his
For
mobile
those who remember
radio shack.
Now, I will tell you a little secret. It kind of drives my wife a little crazy. This is just my OCD kicks in. Every night before a podcast, so last night, all my equipment is all taken out
Yeah.
and spread out over my kitchen table so that I make sure I've got everything where it needs to be. Because I have some boxes that I swap back and forth depending on whether I'm doing photography, videography, podcasts. So it all has to be reset up when I'm going to do something different from what I did last time. So my entire kitchen table gets set up with the soundboard, the microphones, because I don't want to. I've had one of the.
I think what Bill's saying is we need to come over to his house the night before and do the podcast there because he's already got it set
I've
up.
already got it set up to go.
Your poor family. They're probably trying to use the kitchen table, and you're like, no dinner tonight. Let's organize my podcast
You
materials.
don't get to eat the night before podcast. You didn't know that?
TV trays in the living room, kids. Dad's taking over the dining room table.
Actually, yesterday I started it a little bit early. So
We've posted pictures, and we'll post more of the setup,
setup,
that we
yeah.
have, and you forget a cord or something. We run out of batteries at times.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we don't miss much, but I mean, we've had times where we've had to borrow a laptop charger or something like that. But
I think we were low on batteries one day. We were going to run out to the dollar store.
Yeah, I think so. Because I forgot to bring the AA batteries, which I always have with me.
But for the most part, we've survived. But it is a lot. So
Sure. I mean-
we appreciate that, Bill.
Well, thank you. I mean, it takes us about half an hour to set up and then another half an hour to tear down. That's part of the fun. Justin's taking pictures with his phone right
I'm
now.
trying to be active on social media.
Well, you be active, boy. You be you, boo.
I was told that I need to be getting into this
Who
stuff.
could that be? Your social media manager?
Yeah, maybe.
Possibly.
Okay, so I guess
I
this
won't
might-
name any names, but their name rhymes with the spark.
rhymes. It's the same thing.
Are you working with our arch enemy, the Snark?
Maybe. Maybe.
It's the park.
Those guys are the worst.
Anyway, I guess it's my turn. Wishes going forward. Yeah, Justin, truth be told, you did steal a little bit of my thunder, but
Sorry.
no, it's okay. It's okay because the other part of that is actually something a little bit different. I'd like to go back and do a couple of more on location, like we talked about a little while ago. Maybe video podcasts on location at a vendor of some sort, whether it be a food place or a networking event or a expo.
So basically, I'm hearing you want to challenge yourself because when we start to move to these places with background noise and unknown
yes.
elements,
I realize I'm asking to challenge myself, but I mean,
because you're kind of a perfectionist, Bill. I don't know if you noticed.
no, I wouldn't.
I'm so glad she said that because It wasn't me, but it's true.
But, you know,
Wow.
but it means
Good
that
night, folks.
No, it's a good thing.
Bill's
It's a
gotta go
good thing
now.
because our podcast files come out awesome. But
Thank you, but I realize what I'm saying as far as wanting to do something like that. It's really going to stretch me, but I think that's part of the fun with what we're doing.
learning.
Is learning. We're stretching ourselves
Agreed.
as much as we're challenging people that are listening to our podcast to do new things.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing the same thing ourselves.
We learned how to start a Facebook group
Yeah.
and keep it like pretty active.
Yeah.
It's not huge, but it's active and really.
And we just recently
Yeah.
pulled off a challenge. A 7-week challenge.
Facebook Live challenge, right? Right.
So these are all things that I don't think any of us was comfortable saying, "Hey, we're just going to go do this right now."
Mm-hmm.
But we've started to do it, and I think for me, that's one of the things I love about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there's always some place that I can stretch a little bit more and learn something new
Right.
and do something new.
And it really isn't just us. I mean,
No.
the Lil Rhody Facebook group is a great community of
Yes.
Yes.
small business owners and marketers and
Yep.
creative people, and it's been great to see that grow.
Yeah,
I mean, as of this recording, I think we're at like 170.
yeah.
And it's a lot of really good interactivity and people just learning stuff and connecting with one another. So it's been nice being part of that larger community and it's not just the three of us.
Yeah,
you know?
no,
Yeah,
absolutely
it's
not.
definitely not the three of us, and I
We
think
couldn't do it
that's
just ourselves. There's
That's
no-
a good point. We should thank our listeners.
Well, yeah. I mean, thank our listeners, our
Each and
guests.
every one of them.
Yes. No, I mean, we
Thanks,
should.
Mom. No,
well, not
just
only
kidding.
not only that, and I think we'd be remiss. We talked about our favorite guests, but let's be honest. The podcast is a lot more exciting when we have extra guests. We have guests come on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We have some pretty good information that just the three of us together, like now. But it's so much fun to have guests come on and talk about what they know, and they've made us who we are. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
The
No.
guests absolutely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you to all of you who have taken time to come on our podcast.
And thank you for the people that said to us early on, you should really have guests on.
Yeah.
I'm glad we listened.
Yes, and so yeah, I would say in the end, thank you to everybody that's made this possible, and our sincere hope is that we can do this another year or two or whatever it happens, however long this goes on, is that we can continue giving good content to people.
Agreed.
I agree. All right. So
All right.
thanks so much
Yeah.
for a great year.
Yes. Cheers.
Happy birthday to the Marketing Essentials podcast.
Yeah.
And as we always say each episode, I think that will wrap it up.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
And hopefully one day I'll be on the podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. And as always, you can find the back episodes of our podcast on Apple Podcasts. And you can also find us on our YouTube channel. Both of them are the Marketing Essentials team.
You can find us on the web at marketingessentialsteam.com. And if you subscribe through our website, you'll receive a weekly email and letting you know when each episode has been published. Also, you'll receive a link to subscriber-only content.
You can also find us on Facebook in our private Facebook group. Just search Lil Rhody Marketing Support Group. It's a great place for other marketing professionals and business owners where we can share marketing advice, challenges, and general trends. Hope to see you there.